Hey, this is Aaron.
And Blake, we're AB Data.
Thanks for walking through this Alteryx weekly challenge with us.
In this video, we're taking a look at weekly challenge number 223, going nuclear. So as the world grapples with the transition to more sustainable energy production, nuclear energy is often forgotten despite the many reactors that exist in countries all over the world. We're going to use the provided data sets to generate a report giving a high-level overview of the world's current nuclear capacity. So we're going to use these four inputs to create a map showing the locations of reactors with the status of operational, under construction, or planned. And then we're going to create a table listing the number of operational reactors, the total capacity of those reactors, and the most common type of reactor in each country. So if we look at our output here, we'll see that we have our map, which shows all of our different nuclear power plants around the world. And then we have the table that has them listed out by the number of operational reactors, the total capacity, and then the most common type as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at our data and dive in here. We'll see that we do have this list of JSON where we've got names and values. The leading part of this JSON name string is going to be kind of a record ID for each of these, so we'll have to parse that out. And then the value string are just our values that go with that. So let's start out by parsing that data, and then we'll get down to the rest of it, the country codes, status lookup, and the reactor type. So we'll start out, we can actually just use a text to columns tool here. So we're going to take JSON name, and we're going to split it based on the period. So we have a record ID, period, and then the actual name that's going to end up being our field name. We're going to split it into two columns. We can just leave the output root name blank, and then we're going to leave the extra in the last column in case there are any other periods in there. So I'll hit the run button, and now I've got kind of my record ID plus my names for my fields coming up here. I'm going to cross-tab that data by grouping by the number 1 field, which is sort of my record ID. I'm going to change my column headers to the 2 field, has these names. Values will be JSON value string. We'll concatenate, but we shouldn't need to because we've got that sort of record ID that's building everything how we want it to. And this looks really, really good. We've got a nice table here with all the information that we are going to need. So we can go ahead and join this to our country codes now. Let's go ahead and grab a join tool here, and we are going to join from the left our country code, and from the right our country code as well. We are no longer going to need the country code, and it doesn't really mean anything to us, so we can deselect those fields. I know that in a minute I am going to want to use this status ID and this reactor type ID as well. I'm going to be joining them against the numbers from the lookup tables, and they're going to end up being coded as integers. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this change in my join now so that we don't have to come back and make the change later. I'm going to do another join here, and I want to switch this origin to my join. I'm going to join that to my status lookup, and this time I'm going to say I want my status ID to match my status code. I'll hit the run button, and we see we still have 788 records flowing through, 788 again. And then finally, we're going to join against the reactor type. So we're going to have our reactor type from our left, reactor type ID against type code, and we're not going to need type code. We're also not going to need reactor type, so I can go ahead and get rid of both of those. And now if we look off to the far right of our table here, we see that we have our country added on, our status code, the actual status, the type, and the description. We probably don't need that status code, so I'll deselect that field as well. And we want to whittle things down here to where we really only have the certain fields that we want. So let's go ahead and grab a filter. And like our instructions say, we only want status of operational, under construction, or planned. So let's go ahead and say where our status And we're going to make a list here. So we're going to say in our list, we're going to have operational. We're going to have under construction. And we're going to have planned. And then also we want to make sure that we're only getting records that we can map. So we want to make sure that our latitude, longitude are not null or not empty. So I'm going to say that we also want for our field called, let's just go with latitude is not empty. So we'll say latitude is not empty. Let's hit the run button. And we'll look at the false side of our filter. So we see that we do have some of these that are empty, but then we also have some that have things like shutdown status. So we want to get rid of all those shutdown statuses. That's great. We may have some planned ones, but we don't have latitude and longitude, so that's also great. That's not really what we're looking for. So I think that we're ready to almost build our map. We need to go ahead and use our create points tool to create our longitude and latitude. And Alteryx is smart enough to where it can just pull up these fields. So I'll just hit the run button. And now we're going to end up with quite a few centroids here. I can now build my map. So I'm going to make a change here to where I'm showing my connection progress just so that we can all see it. But I'm going to grab my report map and drag it out here so that we can create our map. And for our map here, we're just going to have to make a couple little changes. So our settings can stay the same. For our data, we're going to highlight our incoming string number 1. And we want to set our thematic field to the status. Because remember, the status is kind of what our map is going to look like, to where whether it's planned, under construction, or operational. If we look at the example that we were given, those were the 3 things we were looking for: operational, planned, and under construction. So we are going to want to select that as our thematic field, our status. For our layers, we are going to have a points layer of number 1 here. We're going to want to change our theme, where our tile method is going to be unique value. So we can leave everything else here. If we wanted to start our color kind of at green and go to red, we could do that. So maybe I can change this to a green or a lime. That'll look more like what Alteryx has. But otherwise, I think that we're probably ready to hit the run button. So let me grab a quick browse, and we can take a look at our map after we run this. So looking here, we've got quite a nice little map with all our points on here. We have quite a few operational, some planned, a few under construction as well. So I think that our map is ready to go, at least for this part here. So now we need to go down and we need to build our little table. And in order to build our table, we are going to have to filter a little bit further. So I'm going to switch this origin, and we only want where our status equals operational, because we're only looking at our operational ones. We're going to go ahead and grab a summarize tool, and we can group by our country. Let's grab country and group by country. We want to count our distinct IDs in each one of the countries. So let's go ahead and count our distinct IDs. And we can change this to say these are going to be our operational reactors. And then finally, we want to sum up our capacity. So let's grab our capacity field, and we are going to want to sum that, but it looks like I'm not able to sum it because it's a string. So if I want to, I'll go back to my join, I'll grab capacity, and I'm going to turn it into a double field type. I'll take my summarize, and I'll sum my capacity. And instead of saying sum underscore capacity, I'll say total capacity and hit the run button. So that's building part of our table, but not all of it. We've got to build the other part as well. So we're going to do that on a little separate stream where we're going to go ahead and grab another summarize tool, and we're going to group by our country and our description. So let's group by country, also group by description. So I'll group by both of those, and then we're going to count a distinct ID for each one of those. So let's go ahead and count our distinct ID as well. And so what we've created here is for each country, we've created a list of the descriptions that they have the most of in each one of the countries. So now we need to go ahead and just sort it. And so we want to go with our count distinct ID. We want to sort in descending order so we can find the one that we have the most of. And then finally, we're going to use a sample tool to group by country, select our first one, and hit run. And we'll have a nice listing for each country: Argentina 3, Canada 19, France 58, on and on, down to the United States. We have 65 pressurized water reactors in the US. I'm going to go ahead and build this table now. Join based on country. So I'm going to have country to country. I'll drop off country. I'll drop off that count as well. I believe we don't have that in our final output. We just have the 4 fields. So I'll drop that off. And then we want to sort this by total capacity. So I can come here and say I want to sort descending. And you know what? I actually really like that. And so I want to add that tool to my canvas. So I can come over here and say add tool to canvas, and now it's on my canvas. Let's go ahead and create a basic table. Grab a table, create a basic table here. And I don't think that we're actually doing anything here, so I'll just hit the run button. I'm going to want to union these 2 data points, so my report map and my table. I want to make sure I set a specific output order. I'm going to use a layout to stack them on top of each other, so each individual record can stay the same. Orientation needs to be vertical. And then we will browse to view our results. So looking here, we've got our map up at the top. We have our table down below. Everything looks as it should.
Thank you for learning with us today. Good luck on your Alteryx journey.
For more information on custom training, managed service automations, and more, please visit our website at abdataconsulting.com.